MMA legend and Hollywood star, Randy Couture. Randy, good morning. How you doing?
Very, very good. Thanks.
Excited to be in the city this time of year?
Absolutely. That was nice to wake up to a little snow. I kind of expected that.
We got a little dusting here in New York City of snow. Makes the city, you don't really see the trash as much when the white cover of snow is. Can't smell the rats. It's kind of nice.
The plus side.
Yeah, but this actually is, whenever anybody asks me how it is to live in New York City, I say, come in December. Because all of the stores are decorated, the lights are twinkling, Rockefeller Center is lit up, and there is a really festive, cool atmosphere around here for the holidays throughout this month. And it's got to be cool to have PFL here for this month because it really feels like there's a cool energy.
Absolutely. It's a great place to spend New Year's Eve. This is our second season here for the finale. And, anytime you get 6 new millionaires walking out of there at 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve, that's a great way to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is such a jolt of energy around New York City and around Manhattan on New Year's Eve, normally because of Times Square, the ball dropping, and just people doing a million different things. So to be in the middle of that for the PFL World Championships, I mean, that's kind of the perfect timing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Spectacular.
6 new millionaires. That's, in MMA cash, that is major, major, major cash. What have you noticed from the previous winners of the last couple of years?
Well, I think the biggest thing is this format, kind of creating a true sports format for mixed martial arts, which nobody's ever done. Fighting in the regular season, trying to get to the playoffs, fighting twice in one night in the playoffs, quarterfinals and semifinals on the same night, which is a pretty tough night. And then obviously the culmination in Madison Square Garden to get a chance to step on that scale that Muhammad Ali weighed himself on. I mean, it's pretty nostalgic and interesting and great venue. And then, a lot of these guys would have taken them years to get up to potentially maybe making this kind of money. And I think that got a lot of people's attention with the Professional Fighters League.
Yeah, MMA, obviously, like boxing and other things like that, built around the one-time events and the politicking behind the scenes of promoters and how do you get pitted against champions and kind of work your way up and how often can you fight. And what you guys did at PFL was created the regular season format and then the playoff format. Here's your regular season. You perform well enough. You get your opponents. Here's your schedule. If you perform well enough, you're in the playoffs, and then here is your bracket. You just got to win your matches to get to the championship. And that kind of revolutionized how MMA had been structured. So what's been the reaction around the MMA community for PFL?
I think we definitely got some people's attention. I mean, if you look at what Bellator is doing now with their Grand Prix format, they're kind of following suit because they saw kind of the handwriting on the wall. What I like about it is that you said it, winning. It's not about who does the best publicity stunt or who talks the most trash. It's about who goes out and wins fights and who's effective and performs. And I love that about it.
Randy Couture joins us on behalf of PFL, coming to New York City New Year's Eve for the World Championships, live from MSG in the Hulu Theater. ESPN2 is going to broadcast it 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. Eastern Time on New Year's Eve. You're here in the city as well for a really, really cool cause, and it's an organization called MVP, and that is Merging Vets and Players.
Yeah.
And this is, you were telling me about this. This just is an amazing organization. What exactly do you guys do?
We started 4 years ago, been training pro ball players for a long time using combatives and MMA to train them and cross-train them. And through that process, we got to know a lot of these football players. Obviously, I was a soldier. I wore the uniform in the Army, and so I walked away from that, was a professional athlete, walked away from that as well, and recognized that our soldiers and our athletes that walk away from their professions or their identities in a lot of ways struggle in that transition period. They're not normal humans. And so giving them a place where they can, first of all, start training again, because almost to a man, they're like, should have seen me when I was in uniform. So getting them sweating again, but then getting them together with guys that are struggling with that same transition, going through the same issues. There's some depression there's loss of identity, loss of purpose, especially our soldiers. Obviously, the suicide rate is pretty remarkable. And so trying to stem that down at a grassroots level, turn that around and give these guys an outlet, a place they can vent, a place they feel safe enough to open up and be vulnerable. We're trained as athletes and soldiers not to do that. And so this has been a very, very powerful thing. We've been around for 4 years now. This will be our 5th city. We're in L.A., which is where we started. Las Vegas is where I run the Vegas chapter. Chicago now, Atlanta. Thanks to Dan Quinn and the Falcons, he got behind this program and helped us start the Atlanta chapter. And now we're here in New York, thanks to Roger Goodall. He stepped up and really helped us The NFL sees the wisdom in this, and Bellator's been very supportive. MVP and all of that is really, really doing well, and we're really excited about how powerful it's been.
What a great cause. What a great reason to get people together. And you're seeing the parallels between former athletes that walk away. They don't have the lights on anymore. They don't have that attention and, as you said, the purpose. And then also former soldiers that are coming back, and they're the same thing. When you say loss of purpose for soldiers, is it because you don't have something as grand as protecting your country or fighting for your country? Or is it simply that a lot of the guys that no longer have the service just don't know what their other passions are?
I think they haven't gotten a chance to figure out what their passions are or what that next purpose is. There's something about serving and being in service of your country. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that, in my opinion. So, they missed the locker room. They missed their platoon, their guys.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, that camaraderie. Those are the guys that supported them, whether it was going well or going bad. And that's all gone when they walk away from that uniform. So,
did you have that same kind of emotional crash?
I felt very fortunate that I had that next purpose lined up. I knew where I was headed. When I got out of the service, I was going to college to get that 4-year degree and wrestle for Oklahoma State. When I walked away from fighting, I was heavily entrenched in acting, and so that's become my new purpose and the thing that I aspire to do, and so that it's been good for me. There wasn't that lull where I was standing there looking at myself and, man, what am I going to do now? Who am I really? So, and I think that's what a lot of our guys struggle with.
Is it hard to crack through with guys that are so macho and have been kind of alpha males?
It's been more difficult with the football players and the professional athletes, because I think there's a certain veneer or bravado that comes, I played in the NFL. And they don't want to admit, this really kind of sucks. Now I sit on my couch and eat bonbons.
Yeah.
And
it happens at 35 years old or something. Yeah,
exactly. And it becomes a little easier to get through to some of these soldiers and get them together and get them to say, I'm trying to deal with the VA and I have this injury, or I'm struggling with that, or my wife, or whatever the case may be. So they've been a little more open and willing to show those vulnerabilities and ask for help. The pro ball players, a little less so.
How's the relationship between pro ball players and soldiers? How's that go? Amazing
respect between the two groups of people, and I think that's one of the reasons why this is so powerful. Get them together. It's one thing to see a professional ball player that you watched on TV say, yeah, man, I didn't leave my house for 3 weeks, and finally somebody's wife called and said, man, can you help him? He's really depressed. And getting those guys to open up and share those things they struggle with has been powerful. And then that kind of takes the gloves off, if you will, for a vet that's struggling with a lot of the same things, to say, yeah, man, I need some help too. I don't have a job, or, whatever the case may be. So it's been amazingly powerful.
How about also the chemical stuff that goes on inside a body when you have adrenaline rushes like this and adrenaline dumps? I mean, when you are on the battlefield, I can only imagine what your body goes through. And then you go to civilian life and there's nothing like it. Same thing with football or professional sports. Could you just imagine how subdued your entire life must seem after you are out there?
Again, you're talking about 1% of the population that has achieved and trained and worked their way up to being at that level, whether it's on a football field or a battlefield. And there is an adrenaline component to that. These guys are adrenaline junkies in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So now how are they going to safely and constructively channel that energy?
Right. Randy Couture joins us here on the show. That organization is MVP, Merging Vets and Players, and definitely worthwhile conversation to check out. If you have anybody in your family that's a veteran, former in the military, and would need some help, could use some help, this is a great organization to reach out to.
Absolutely.
So that's MVP. You're also here, as we mentioned, for PFL, New Year's Eve, 2019 PFL World Championship. You got your eye on any specific fighters going into this thing?
We have 2 returning champs from last season. They're trying to repeat, and Lance Palmer and Nathan Schultz, both exciting guys, fun to watch. Lance is a total package. I mean, he's studies, student of the game, nutritionist, strength coach, moved his camp to Jersey to train with Frankie Edgar and Eddie Alvarez and a bunch of guys in his weight class, and he's really firing on all cylinders. Nathan Schultz kind of grinded it out to win last season. He beat Chris Wade from Nassau, from Long Island in the semis, and a lot of people thought he didn't win that fight. This year he's been on fire. He's had 4 stoppages in the regular season and the playoffs, 3 submissions and 3 knockouts and a submission, and so he's kind of shut up all the naysayers. obviously Kayla Harrison in the women's division, 2-time gold medalist judoka, 5-0 now in MMA, to making that transition. And it's been really fun to see her journey. She's got her hands full with Larissa Pacheco in the finals on New Year's Eve. It's going to be a fun one.
What is it like? What does it take for a fighter to be able to fight two of these in one night?
Yeah,
you never see that.
We used to do that. I mean, my first UFC, we fought twice. Twice that night. By fighting the quarterfinals and the semifinals against two different opponents, you don't know who's going to advance. I mean, that's a really tough night.
Yeah,
and these guys
can't
have
game plan.
Really stepped up and been fun to watch them. Endure that adversity in great fashion.
Yeah, it's a great dynamic to just kind of throw in there. PFL World Championship live from the Hulu Theater, MSG in New York City. If you're in the area for New Year's Eve, and so many people are, if you're watching on TV that night, ESPN2 from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. Eastern Time. 6 title belts, 6 millionaires made with 6 title fights in the PFL World Championship. Randy Couture is our guest. Randy, it's always good to catch up, man. Thanks so much.
Glad to be back.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.